Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. I prepared this lecture with Hadas. Hadas is from Oranim College in Israel. She worked on the historic sources, and I worked on the ancient textiles. Mulham Textiles, composed of silk ropes and hidden wefts, made of other materials such as linen or wool, but usually cotton. This lecture will present Mulham Textiles in the land of Israel and Egypt and aspects of history, religion, socio-cultural perspectives, technology, art, and origin of these textiles. A. Mulham Textiles from Jazirat Faroun, Coral Island in the Red Sea, and Karantal Cave 38 near Jericho. B. References from Fostat, Kasser Ibrim, and Tiraz Textiles. C. Historic sources such as El Muqaddasi. D. Origin of Mulham Textiles. One of the most important sites yielded Mulham Textiles is Jazirat Faroun, Coral Island. The medieval fortress on Coral Island is located in the Red Sea, 14 kilometers south of modern city of Eilat in Israel. Excavations were carried out by Avner Goren from 1975 till 1981, but the final report was not published. About 1,500 textile fragments, 700 basketry fragments, and 700 pieces of cordage were discovered at the site. Of this large corpus, 236 textiles were selected for further analysis. On the basis of pottery and radiocarbon studies, the material has been dated to the 13th century CE. The island, a solid granite rock, measures 300 meters from north to south and approximately 150 meters from east to west at its widest point. It is of strategic importance at the junction of the Red Sea route leading to southern Arabia and East Africa and the land routes leading to Syria and Egypt. On the west, facing the shore of the Gulf, lies a shallow lagoon which can be entered by boat at high tide and was used as a sheltered harbor in the Ayyubid period of occupation in the 12th and 13th century CE. The Ayyubid dynasty was a Muslim dynasty of Kurdish origin founded by Salah ad-Din and centered in Egypt. Most of the textiles were discovered in the Midden's waste dumps, in contrast to the many basketry and cordage fragments recovered within the building structures. As there is no sign of sudden destruction, it can be assumed that the inhabitants deserted the island, taking their garments and other valuable textiles with them and abandoned only used mats, baskets, and cordage fragments. A similar situation was observed at the early Islamic site, 7th century CE of Nahal Omer, at the southern part of Israel, where textile scraps were found in the Middens, while the basketry and cordage fragments were discovered in the ends of the building. Following the peace agreement between Israel and Egypt in 1982, all the material found at the site was drawn up and photographed, then returned to Egypt where it was stored. And Aliza Baginski, she is more than 90 years old, and I worked with her on this corpus of textiles, but sometimes you can see that the photos are not in very good quality because it was years ago. 236 textiles display a large variety of materials: cotton, linen, silk, wool, goat hair, and mulham, and different techniques, dyes, decorations, and patterns. No complete garments were discovered, as most fragments had been cut into strips, rectangles, or triangles. Many were stamped, some were faded, and several had a foreign substance, such as bitumen, adhered to them. 22 textiles from Coral Island have silk warps and cotton hidden wefts, a specific weave known as Mulham. All the Mulham textiles at Coral Island are warp-faced, the weft being almost invisible. The silk warp has colored stripes, while the weft is either undyed or light blue. In most cases, the weft threads are paired. One has stripes of alternating colors with thick triple and single wefts from a pattern of small checkerboard squares and stripes. The warp is made of silk, brown, 2 shades of blue, and beige. This span 84 threads per centimeter, and the weft is made of cotton, beige. This spans 16 threads per centimeter. So you can see the difference. The warp always has many threads, 84 in this case, and the weft is 16 threads per centimeter. All the textiles from the Coral Island that I will exhibit, they are Z-span. And for those of you who are not familiar with these terms, so S-span, when you turn the spindle to the left side, like this, and for thousands of years, from the Neolithic period till the medieval period, most of the textiles in the land of Israel, they are S-span. And thousands of textiles from the Roman period discovered at the Judea desert, they are S-span. Sometimes we have textiles which are Z-span to the right side, and they are imported from Europe and especially arrived with the Roman troops to the land of Israel. But in Egypt, also, most of the textiles are S-span, as cotton in Nubia, and in Europe, usually it is Z-span. Of course, it depends which period, and I just give you a general indication. I'm lucky because recently I got textiles from excavations in Mongolia, and the textiles are made of silk. They are from the 11th century CE. They are originated from China, and they are not spun at all, not to the S direction, not to the right direction, and the fibers are straight ahead like the letter I. So it is very important indication for the origin of textile. One mulham is decorated with a very delicate silk tapestry band of fine brown scrolls on a beige ground. The warp is made of blue and red silk, Z-span 90 threads per centimeter, and the weft is blue cotton Z-span. Garments made of delicate fabrics were sometimes lined with an undyed cotton fabric as the sleeve from a mulham garment, probably cut to shape tunic, which was lined. And the warp of the mulham is silk, beige and brown. This span 120 threads per centimeter. Could you imagine? I mean, years ago when we had to count this number of threads, the weft is undyed cotton Z-span. The lining consists of 4 cotton pieces stitched together. The cuff is carefully finished by folding it inwards. And during the Hellenistic, Roman, and Byzantine periods in the land of Israel, all the garments, all the tunics are woven to shape. It means that the shape and the size of the tunic was determined on the loom. But from the 7th century onwards, from the early Islamic period, we find already cut-to-shape tunics. For example, from Nahal Omer, I mentioned this important site from the southern part of Israel, and recently we got a grant, a joint project between Israel and Germany with Berit from Göttingen University, and we are making a research, and we excavated Nahal Omer site, which yielded thousands of textiles, and the tunics are cut to shape. Another example is from Jordan, from the 8th century CE, from a sanctuary, and Hero Granger Taylor published the textiles from this site, and also, of course, you know about cut to shape tunics from Egypt, from this period and onwards. A fragment of a garment, probably a gore or for a robe. Two pieces of the same material were joined and cut into triangle, folded, hemmed, and lined with cotton. Near the selvage, a beige stripe, then alternating blue, brown, and beige fine stripes. A white beige stripe, and again alternating fine brown, blue, and beige stripes. The warp is silk, beige, light blue, and brown, Z-span, 120 threads per centimeter. The weft is cotton, light blue, Z-span, 18 threads per centimeter. And another example, Mulham fragment cut into rectangles. The pattern is alternating stripes, red and blue, warp silk, red and beige, and again 110 threads per centimeter, and the weft is Z-span, 18 threads per centimeter. We continue with Cave 38, Karantal, near Jericho. Although hundreds medieval textiles were found at the Judea desert caves, none of them yielded Mulham textiles. Except of Cave 38, only one Mulham textile. The artifacts at Cave 38 were discovered in the course of excavations conducted in 1993 in the cliff above Jericho on behalf of the Israel Antiquities Authority. The cave consists of several connected spaces. The textiles were found only in one space, Area F, which was used as a storage for them. Preserved by the arid climate of the Judean desert, the textiles of the cave display a remarkable variety of materials and techniques suggesting diverse geographical origins. The dating of the material from Cave 38 to the early 9th to late 13th century CE, based on the archaeological context, has been confirmed by carbon-14 analysis and by technical and stylistic comparisons with textiles from other sites. 768 textile fragments from Cave 38 were analyzed and catalogued by Aliza Baginski and by me. Most significant are the textile fragments made with various techniques, some of them requiring sophisticated looms, such as the draw loom. The textiles are torn, cut, and patched, and many have been reused, sometimes more than once. Many are composed of several different textiles or of several pieces of the same material stitched together. Others were cut into rectangles, odd shapes, or strips. All are small and worn. Some fragments were stamped, and some were partly burnt. Some of the reused textiles are of high-quality materials and designs used, including fragments of once splendid silk fabrics, which only the upper classes could afford. Most of them were used for decorations. It can be assumed that most of these fragments were parts of clothing, such as tunics, although no complete garments were found. The textiles materials from K38 are made of cotton, 285, linen, 261, silk 38, wool, gauter, and mixed materials such as linen and cotton. Fustian textiles. I'm so sorry we missed the lecture of Dot about Fustian textiles, because in the last few months we wrote each other about this phenomenon of mixing linen and cotton threads together. The number, the relatively large number of Mulham textiles is unique to Jazirat Faroun. None were discovered at Qasr al-Kadim in Egypt, and only 11 specimens were found at Fustat, Old Cairo. Both the silk warps and cotton wefts are Z-span. The textiles are balanced or warp-faced and are striped, either undyed or dyed pistachio or blue. Qasr Ibrim is located 235 kilometers south of Aswan in Egypt. It originally stood on the east bank of the Nile. A row of several rock-cut tombs contained the graves of bishops. One hat was preserved with far edging. This type of hat, with its far edging and triangular panels, was known by the Persian term as sharbush in the Middle Ages, early 13th century CE. Its use was restricted to high officials. It is made of linen and cotton textiles stitched together. The outer fabric is made of salmon, white, and green striped silk of Mulham. So, as we can see, not only Muslims used Mulham, but also Christians. Many of the Tiraz textiles are made of Mulham, which are Islamic period textiles inscribed with good wishes. The date and place of manufacture and the name of the ruler who ordered the fabric in order to make robes of honor to present to his courtiers. Basically, Tiraz is a term that described that the ruler factories where special embroidered textiles were manufactured. At the same time, the term Tiraz described the rich embroidery at the margins of the elites' garments that were served from precious textiles as silk and linen. We will mention two examples, one dated to the 9th century CE, attributed to Iran, Khorasan. The inscription here says the fabric was made in Nishapur, a city known for its mixed silk cotton Mulham. Nishapur was famous in the medieval period when it flourished as a regional capital and was home to many religious scholars. It was also known as an economic center. Nishapur was located on the trade route known as the Silk Road, which ran from China to the Mediterranean Sea, crossing Central Asia, Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Turkey along the way. In addition, Nishapur was a source of turquoise and a center for growing cotton, producing cotton textiles, as well as several types of fabric incorporating silk such as Mulham. Stillman Yedidia described that a woman might then totally envelop herself in a Khurasan izar of Mulham. Harun al-Rashid, the 5th Abbasid Caliph, 9th century CE, made regular presents of Tiraz garments and fabrics to his favorites, including Mulham Tiraz. According to Sargent, the Mulham stuffs were made in the palace factories of Baghdad or Samarra, and that is extremely likely for Mutasim, the 8th Abbasid ruler, when he built the city, brought craftsmen there from all quarters. An example of Tiraz fragment dated to the 9th century CE. Like many Tiraz textiles, the Kufic inscription embroidered across the central field of this fragment included the name of the Abbasid Caliph El-Mutadid, 9th century CE, and praises in praise of him and the Prophet Muhammad. A tiny inscription in the right margin contains the name Ibn Khorasan, possibly the weaver. The silk and cotton woven fabric is referred to in Arabic literature as Mulham, which has been associated with Merv, the Abbasid Muslim dynasty capital of Khorasan in eastern Iran, nowadays in Turkmenistan. Diana argues that Mulham Tiraz textile from the Kelsey Museum utilized epigraphic evidence, historical sources, textual references to the symbolic significance of the textiles in the medieval Islamic world, as well as analysis of the textile argues that it is originally in the city of Merv and traveled to Egypt as a result of the conflicts between the Khalifa, the rulers, dynasty of the Abbasids based in Baghdad, and the Egyptian Toulonese, both of whom used Tiraz as a political tool. We continue with historic sources. Berit Hildebrand from Göttingen University wrote that from the 3rd century CE on, we also find distinctions between half-silken sub-serica and pure silk fabrics, holoserica, while holosericum seems to have originated in the Greek East, possibly coined by traders at the western ends of the Silk Roads. The etymology of sub-sericum points to a Latin origin, which might be related to the luxury discourses around silken textiles for which half-silken garments were regarded as a compromise. While ancient texts usually do not specify which materials were used for mixed silk fabrics, with the exception of the early medieval author Isidorus of Seville, who mentions silks as weft and linen as wove threads, 9 textiles finds from Palmyra show combinations of silk and wool, silk and flax, and even silk and cotton. In the 9th century, in the 9th century CE, the Caliph al-Mutawaki even set a trend when he wore in public a shiny half-silk textile called mulham. The technique offered an economical way to make the most of silk yarns, which was significantly more expensive than cotton or linen. Probably cheaper than pure silk textiles, mulham fabrics quickly became very popular all over the Islamic world when they were aimed at a market of moderate wealth. Al-Mutawaki preferred garments of mulham over all other garments, and so that was his clothing and the clothing of everyone, great and small, in his residence. It might be an indication to his modesty and piety as role model for believers. The price of mulham rose in his time because of its quality. At the book of Gifts and Rarities, and translation and study of the 9th through 13th century manuscripts, there is valuable information on gifts exchanged on various occasions between Islamic rulers and their foreign counterparts, and which enumerated the treasures of the Fatimic palaces. For example, it is written, there is a subtle far between the outside cover and the lining, which are made of light mulham fabric, and the covers were made of Kurashani mulham cloth, which was the lightest and warmest of all fabrics. Mulham textiles were also designed in response to Islamic law, which prohibited male clothing made of pure silk, while permitted them to women. Together with gold, silk was forbidden adornment to pious men. It is said the Prophet took some silk in his right hand and a piece of gold in his left hand, declaring, "These two are haram, not permitted for the males among my followers, but halal is a famous word you can see at the restaurants in Germany, but halal permitted for the females." Mulham was also produced in the land of Israel, for example, in Gaza. Mulham is mentioned in several letters of the Cairo Geniza. The Geniza is paper documents originating in the land of Israel, dated to the first half of the 11th century. It tells us about Jews from Sicily who ordered mulham Gaza dresses. For my private account, 104 mulham Gaza dresses. El-Muqaddasi, a medieval Arab geographer, 10th century CE, gives details of the commerce of Syria. From Palestine come olives, dried figs, raisins, decayed fruits, stuffs of mixed silk and cotton, soap and kerchiefs. Also from Ramle, not far away from Tel Aviv, was a fabric which was considered particularly prestige. The silk was likely produced from silkworms cultivated on mulberry leaves around the city. At the Cairo Geniza, many other references. Jessica Goldman, she's an expert of the Geniza documents, wrote me, the instances that I have seen only discuss Mulham robes, suggesting it was not just a specific weave, but a weave specific to a garment. The robe is one of the most common garments. My quick look shows them only appearing in the 11th century. One document is from the merchant Nissim, and it is in fact a set of notes he made about shipments he sent from Alexandria. Some of the goods were sent to Sicily and some to Tunisia. He himself is from Fustat, and it is actually shipping these robes to Tunisia for sale. In summary, the prohibition on the use of silk for men's garments, together with its high price, have led to the creative solution of Mulham Textiles that facilitated the interweaving of silk threads into other textiles. The permitted raw materials were sometimes used separately, but in other cases mixed for the purpose of creating new textures and threads. The mixture enabled to follow the juridical decrees together with fulfilling the wish to be adorned with silk, a status symbol of high socioeconomic status. We saw examples of Mulham textiles and compared them to the historical sources as an attempt to correlate textual and archaeological findings. According to Muslim sources, silk textiles were prohibited for men, but at the same time, they were perceived as luxury status symbol, an inherent contradiction that was solved creatively. The manufacturer's solution was manifested by using silk warps and hidden wefts made of other materials. This compromised solution was the Mulham textile that was found in excavations in the sites mentioned at this lecture. Mulham textiles were not produced in Egypt, but started to be mentioned in literary sources of the 9th century in Iraq and Iran, where they seem to originate and then spread through the Islamic world. And I would like to thank Agatha, Catherine, Joanna, Angela. I had so many questions about this conference, so thank you very much. And my colleague, Aliza Baginski, as I told you, she's 92 years old. So I presented this lecture before I left Israel, and she sent her regards to all of you. She's very famous textile researcher, and we don't have many textile researchers in Israel, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Orit, for this wonderful presentation. I think we are on time, so we can have some questions, comments. Does anyone? You, Angela.
Yeah, maybe a question, comment, thought. I was wondering, as you finished also saying that this is a bit of a weird situation with it being prohibited but still produced, and there's a tension there, right? I think in pre-modern consumption theory, they think a lot about conspicuous consumption and creation of desire. And I'm wondering if that's not something in the way the market works, that actually a desire is actively created and then a product is created to, like, that the tension is not that big, that it's to a certain degree sort of a marketing strategy also to say, okay, you can have something that you are not supposed to have, and it's still legal. You know what I mean? So that it's kind of gearing at a very like noble and special customer base, you know?
You know, I mean, I didn't enter into details. What is the reason that it was forbidden for men? This is connected also to your life in the heaven in contrast to your life in hell. Because if you use pure silk, you go to the hell. If you are moderate like this ruler, so you go to heaven. But we have other questions. When you find pure silk textiles at the early Islamic period from the 7th century CE at Nahal Omer, what is the meaning of these textiles? Is it connected to the garments of women, or these people were secular and they didn't follow the rules? Because, you know, you find many silk textiles, pure silk textiles. For example, I didn't enter into details, but K38 above Jericho yielded many silk textiles, and they are pure textiles. So, of course, there are many questions about these materials that were combined together.
You want to add something? No, it's okay. You want to make?
Yes, thank you very much. It was very, very interesting. And I thought about this rule as well. So I wonder if it might goes back to the Torah saying that you should not mix different things like wool and flax. But I don't know. I've got no idea. So
right, because Hadas and me, we wrote an article, but I didn't want to enter into details. But according to the Jewish law, it is written in the Bible that it is forbidden to mix wool and linen together. You can mix wool and cotton because cotton entered to the land of Israel only in the Byzantine period when they already closed the Bible and the Talmudic sources. But it is forbidden to mix linen and wool. And till today, there are laboratories at Jewish ultra-Orthodox communities in the United States and in Israel that you buy your garment or you want to buy your garment and they examine the textiles. And for example, it was written that it is forbidden to buy a certain cloth, a special coat in Zara because of these two materials. So they keep this rule for thousands of years. And maybe there is, you know, a little bit of connection between these two things. And it is very interesting that in some societies they don't mix two materials together, and in order to overcome this forbidden pure silk, they combine cotton and silk. But shatnez, it is written in the Bible when you cannot mix linen and wool only, but you can mix cotton and wool or silk and wool because these are late materials. Sorry.
Any more questions? Yes.
Thank you so much. It was really very interesting. I'm wondering if you have found any common designs between the pottery and the design of fabrics. I saw before these Kufic inscriptions, and they reminded me this famous pottery with inscriptions. So I'm wondering, if this would, if at the place where you found these fabrics, you found also pottery of the same period, of the same origin.
So at the Coral Island, they didn't find so many pieces of pottery because they left the site in an orderly fashion and they took their pottery vessels with them. But in general, during this period, we have very colorful pottery with inscriptions, but they are very rare. Maybe there is a little bit of connection, but the textiles are in geometric designs, not like tapestry that you have different designs of birds and animals, or in the drolu when you have complicated designs.
Yes, but I remember from the place in the Persian name of the town, not Nishapur, the other one.
Merv?
No, the other one. I don't remember. You mentioned it before, but I forgot. Mm-hmm. Because there is pottery with blue stripes, or there is pottery with, designs that remind some, how to say, design of some fabrics. That's why I said that.
I'm sure you're right. And there is a connection between the colors of the pottery, the designs, and the textiles, especially with carpets.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So this will be the last question because we are running out of time. But go ahead, Megan.
Thank you for your interesting presentation. One's a comment. I thought the inscriptions of the manufacturer is really wonderful and cool that you have that in there. You can see where and who made it. That's great. My question really was the fabric with the mix. Can you, like it's, the silk is in the weft, you said? Mm-hmm. So is it weft? Can someone see it that it is made of cotton and silk? So my real question is, if it's a prohibition...
It is completely hidden, but
Okay.
of course, through a microscope, and when we worked with magnifying glass, we could see it, or we can see it at the edges, because all these textiles are cut, and you know they are reused again and again, so we could see it. But in antiquity, they didn't see the cotton, and
this is
you can
between you
compare when you have only 16 threads, weft threads per centimeter, and 100 very delicate silk threads, which covered all these cotton threads.
Yeah.
So it is very innovative.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it's like the prohibition, it's a relationship between you and God, like if you're owing it, or if it's between you and the authorities and you can get
You and
punished.
God.
It's
You and
between
God.
you and God.
You're right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.